Welcome back to the Speakeasy podcast. I want to start this episode off with I know, okay? I know that it feels like at every turn you are being told there's something else that you have to take out of your diet. There's something else that is slowly killing you or your kids. And I know, I really, please remember that I am a mom right alongside you. It feels never ending and it feels daunting and it feels impossible and expensive and difficult. But this is something that I'm kind of like closet passionate about, and I'm learning to be more forthright. A lot of the time, I struggle with talking about this kind of stuff because I feel like I don't know enough to be an expert. But then I know that I love learning from people that aren't experts, but I also love learning from people who are. And my guest for today, Steven, is the founder of Ancient Crunch, which makes masa chips as well as Vandy chips, which are a staple in our home. Discovered them last summer when I went down the seed oil rabbit hole and found that unfortunately, seed oils are as bad as they're telling you they are. And by they, I mean the individuals on the ground that are doing the research, certainly not like the governments or the corporations that are benefiting from 25 to 30% of our diets being seed oils. Anyway, I digress. Stephen is a wealth of knowledge. He has a really fascinating background, both in his home life as well as his health, that led him to a place where he kind of had to figure it out himself. And that's exactly what he's done. And over the last 4 years, he's turned it into a very successful business. But beyond that, he just knows what he's talking about. And he gets a little bit scientific in this episode. We talked about molecules for a little while at one point, but I think it's helpful to understand on a biological level what seed oils are doing and how we can make a difference. And we didn't just talk about seed oils, we talked about gluten and we talked about red 40 and all of these different things. And I think that at the end of the day, this is the kind of episode that I want to put out to just be like, hey, I just want to make sure that this information is accessible and consumable, that it's something that you can digest and understand. And from there, do what you want with. So let's get into it. Stephen, welcome to the Speakeasy.
Thanks, Blake. Great to be here.
So I was telling you before we started recording, big fan. You are the founder of Ancient Crunch, and you make some of the best chips, I think, on the market. And it's a big deal because my kids like them, and they are incredibly picky kids. And so it's super nice to grab a bag of Vandy and head to the park and know that everybody's going to be happy.
Yeah. The kids are the harshest critics, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that's like the big thing with health foods. It's always the tension between parents wanting their kids to eat healthy and the kids not wanting to eat healthy. That was definitely me growing up. I grew up in a pretty stringent household from a food choice perspective. Not like go to a friend's house and just binge eat Cheez-Its until I threw up, right? Because I couldn't get them at home, right? And so if you have an answer to a food or a snacking situation that makes the parents happy but also the kids happy, that's kind of like everyone likes that. That's great.
That is truly the ultimate win. That is ultimate. Yeah. So from one mom, thank you. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
And your chips have been like a feature in our home for a while. But then when your team reached out about having you on the podcast, and I started digging into the background and why Ancient Crunch came to be and what your story was, I was like, wait, this is even cooler than it just being something you were passionate about, which I think would be great. But you have your own lived experience with chronic illness and trying to figure out what was going on with your body and healing that. And I think the passion behind it shows up in the product is kind of evident.
Well, I like to think so. I'm glad to hear that that's externally visible.
Yeah.
I think do you want the origin story, I guess, or do you want the background? What do you think is helpful here?
Yeah, I think let's go back. You've mentioned the home that you grew up in a couple of times. And I know that you have, the roots there, kind of your mom, your family, it was really important what you guys were eating. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes. So the two key things that were perhaps different about my, at least culinary life as a kid, were my mom's parents are from Sicily. And so there's a very strong uh, culture around good food,
Yeah.
defined in a certain way. Um, we don't eat crappy olive oil in this house. We eat extra virgin olive oil. We don't buy that pasta. We buy this pasta, or we make things a certain way, as Italians do. Um, a good anecdote about this is like when my mom was a kid and her family would go on a road trip to Florida or something in the summer. They would pull over at the rest stop, and her dad would pull out a little Weber grill out of the back of the car and like grill a steak or something because all the food was crappy, and
Yeah.
he would never eat out. And that was back in the what 70s or 80s or
Yeah.
something, when I'm sure highway food was probably somewhat okay. Um, and so yeah, very very stringent taste culture, if you could call it that. The other thing is that I grew up largely eating gluten free and quote unquote healthy in some ways, not always, but in some ways. For example, I never had Doritos as a kid because that's like artificial flavors, and we don't do that because that's bad. Um, and another thing with gluten is when I was a little kid, I think I was about 6 months old, and my mom started feeding me solid foods. She realized that the foods that contained gluten would stop me from growing. So I think she weaned breastfeeding and then gave me baby food and whatever. And I stopped growing for like several months. And she went to the doctor and was like, "My son's not growing. What's wrong?" And the doctor's like, "Oh, okay, it's normal. It's normal. It's fine. Don't worry about it." She's
Right.
like, "No, this is not normal. My less than a year old baby should be growing." Um, and so she did an elimination diet on me and identified gluten as the culprit. Knowing what I might know today, I would say maybe it's not the gluten itself, but certain pesticides or
Right.
folic acid, enriched quote unquote vitamins in wheat flour, etc. But alas, that meant that growing up I was gluten free, which again is somewhat at odds with having an Italian household.
Right.
So that was a bit of a struggle. Um, but the main issue with this, the two main implications is that I never really could eat all the things that I wanted to eat.
Yeah.
Um, a good example is if we had bread, like Italian bread or something, like because I'm not allowed to eat bread, everyone felt bad. I would like beg my sister or my parents for like what I called a bread molecule, which is like a crumb
Yeah.
of bread as like a treat or whatever while I ate the rice or whatever it was. But the other thing is I just had a lot of I guess you call it low grade chronic health problems. Um, so I got sick a lot is a big one. I always had allergies, stuffy nose, couldn't breathe through my nose, a lot of bloating, gastrointestinal distress. I had pancreatitis when I was like in sixth grade, which is not a thing that anyone
No.
gets unless you're like a major alcoholic or something. It made no sense. Um, I got the swine flu in eighth grade, and then 2 weeks later, I got the regular flu. So yeah, not the healthiest, at least physically, healthiest kid on the block. Um, and I never really thought too deeply into this because I was just a kid. I'm just like, oh, I don't get to eat the things that I want. That sucks is what it is. But it all sort of changed for me when after freshman year of college, I did the study abroad thing in Belgium, which is uh, first of all they have delicious food there. Second of all, uh, they have. Wait, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. First of all, they have delicious food there, and second of all, they don't really have dining halls at the university campuses, and so I had to cook for myself, and that was the first time I had ever really done so. Right when I grew up, my mom cooked everything, and then when I was in college, I had dining hall. So cooking for myself, I got to see the end to end workflow, if you will, from buying ingredients to cooking to eating to how I felt after. And so being able to make those connections, I was able to determine, if I ate that thing, that made me feel good. And if I eat this other thing, that made me feel bad. Maybe I should eat more of what makes me feel good and less of what makes me feel bad. And then that kind of inspired a little bit of research into health food, which I never obviously I'd done unwittingly up to that point, but I never really done on purpose. Um, and so I started learning about um, nutrition and the implications of certain pesticides and the glyphosate thing. I think I got at that time, this is in 2014, and so the paleo diet was popular, and that's what I
Yeah.
started doing. Learned a lot about that. Started eating paleo. Eventually, it just somehow became my primary hobby, if you will.
Yeah.
My grandfather was a doctor. My uncle is a functional medicine doctor and chiropractor. Might be some genetics there going on, but is what it is. Well, so over the years, I did keto, I did the sprouting thing, I did the fermenting thing. I was making kefir for like breakfast. That was my breakfast in college for a while. I was sprouting quinoa and broccoli seeds, and I would bring my boiled sprouted quinoa that I made in the dorm to the dining hall to eat with the chicken that I would get because they didn't have any other. Like I would just request the plain chicken, which is what they fed the allergy kids, you know.
Yeah.
And I would have that with my quinoa, um, sourdough bread, on and on. That was like my main thing for I guess it was 8 or so years until I ended up starting Incha Crunch out of all of that.
So I think going back to something that you said was like when you started cooking for yourself and you realized like the whole workflow and then after the fact how you felt, did this make me feel good
Mhm.
or make me feel bad? I think that's a missing piece for a lot of people. Like they're moving so fast and they're not paying attention
Mhm.
to like the direct correlation between what we're putting in our bodies and how it makes us feel. And I can cop up to that. Like, I think it's really impressive that as a freshman in college, I think it speaks to your upbringing as well, that you were making that connection for yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was probably in my like mid 30s before I
Mhm.
was going, oh, when I eat gluten or when I eat,
Yeah.
bread, I don't really love how I feel.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up reading Grain Brain. Oh, this is like 5 years ago, and reading some of the studies. I've always really struggled on like the mental health side of things and been like on
Mhm.
and off of medications and stuff like that, and learning about the implications there of what we're putting in our body, not just like physiologically, but also mentally, how we're feeling with what we eat. And that was the big turning point for me. And I like cut gluten completely, which retrospectively maybe should have eased it out because going cold turkey can be kind of rough sometimes.
Yeah,
But
that's the thing.
also,
That's the problem with the paleo diet is that the two most delicious food groups are gluten and dairy.
yeah,
Just like is what it is. Sorry.
yeah, it is.
What are
No,
you gonna do
it's
about it?
true. But
Um,
I really liked how I felt
yeah, yeah.
when I
Which
when I
and then
cut
it's
it
like
out.
where's the priority, right? Um, yeah, I think two things. One is that I believe most people end up quote unquote discovering health out of for three reasons. One of which actually it's really two. One is they get older and their youthful vibrance fades, and they're like, "Wait, I feel like crap all of a sudden. What the hell's going
Mm-hmm.
on?" And then they try to figure out how to feel better, and they stumble upon diet as an answer. The other probably half of people is they either themselves or via their kids experience some kind of chronic disease injury type event. They
Yeah,
got Lyme disease. Their kid had maybe their kid was injured from certain medicines they might have been given when they're very
mm-hmm.
young, shall we
Mm-hmm.
say.
Yeah,
Um, and they're like, oh, well, this is obviously not supposed to happen. This is not how the body's supposed to work. Like, how do I fix this? And then they go down this like functional medicine, autoimmune diet thing.
yeah,
I think I probably fall more into the latter case, but the main thing is it was just like myself over time. Like I was never, a lot of kids in college they're like, oh, I can drink all like a fish and stay up all night and whatever because they're like a vibrant, healthy person. I never was that to begin with.
right.
So like from that age, I was able to be like, oh, I can actually tell if I'm feeling better here. And then of course it comes down to does your life circumstance and does your personal preferences like enable you to make that choice over the perhaps indulgent but unhealthy choice.
Yeah,
And that's why, and that's so a lot of people like have this moment where like I should be healthy, but then they don't necessarily stick with any course of action, or maybe they don't even adopt in the first place. And the problem there is really the enjoyment thing, and that's why say 5% of American consumers are like what we might call a super health conscious,
mm-hmm.
like where they base their primary dietary choices off of like health considerations in a pretty stringent way. Um, that's not common, and the big reason for that is simply because of the stereotype or the presumption, whether real or imagined, that healthy foods taste bad, and people just rather enjoy the foods they eat than feel slightly less bloated or whatever.
Right. No, I think that's fair. I mean, we were talking at the top of the show about kids, like,
Yeah.
and some of
Yeah,
us
yeah,
are
perfect
kind of,
example. Yeah, they'd much rather, they're a perfect example because they don't know enough to understand the implications of health.
yeah.
And they're like indestructible anyway. And so they're like, well, I want to eat what tastes good. And I think that's a great disservice to the American populace. And I do think this is a uniquely American thing.
Oh yeah.
Insofar as America's exporting culinary culture outside of the US, it's actually a big problem. But let's just pretend that Europe is still like what Europe was maybe 20 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, no one ever has a problem in Europe with food. There's no obesity crisis. There's no like crazy eating disorder or whatever.
How
No
many
one's just
stories do
like,
you hear of people that like can't eat bread here and all they do is eat bread when
yeah,
they're in Italy, you know?
every single time someone goes to Italy, they're like, oh, I ate bread and wine and coffee all day and stayed up all night and I felt great and I lost
Yeah.
weight and blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. And that's the experience of the people who live in a place like Italy or France or whatever. Like, that's what they do all day. So obviously, they don't have any of these like complexes regarding food. They don't
Right.
have eating disorder, guilt, shame, whatever mentality. Um, and they don't have to, there's the trade off between health and enjoyment is just not ever a decision they have to make. And
Yes.
so this entire thing creates people, especially in our circles, but broadly, the average American creates so much distress and annoyance in daily life. People
Hmm.
arguing over what to eat, people feeling miserable about their bodies, people getting frustrated that their quote unquote diet's not working or whatever it is. All of those harmful effects, physiologically, emotionally, and otherwise, they're just not a thing. They're not present in, say, this European or maybe just not American culture.
Hmm.
But more importantly, they don't have to be there at all. And that's I think the key insight, right? The existence of a place like Italy proves that you don't need to make this trade-off. So if that's the case, if you know that it's not necessary, why do we have it here? And that's my main question, and that's the answer, or at least part of the answer, comes through the products that we sell and what we make.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of we haven't even talked about seed oils, which is a
Yeah,
big one. Like, I, and I'm gonna be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a pretty fair amount of my audience. It's like, yes, I'm very familiar. Like, I follow enough people on Instagram that are like, seed oil's bad, but don't fully understand. And so
yeah,
I was
yeah.
wondering if you could like break down, because I'm kind of fall in that camp too. Like, I
Sure.
know that I don't feel good when I eat seed oils, and I understand to some degree
Mhm.
that it's not great, but what's going on there?
Yeah, I think my preferred method of explaining this is a little history lesson, actually.
Yeah, I love history.
That's where it starts. So, if you want to be a purchaser of oils or fats today, you have a lot of options available to you. You have avocado oil, you have canola oil, you have soybean oil, you have palm oil, coconut oil, tallow, ghee, lard, butter, whatever. There's a lot of fats that you can choose from. If you're American, whatever, maybe it's you. You're in a time machine. It's 1900. You're in America. The types of fats you have available to you to eat are basically there's three of them. There's butter, lard, and tallow.
Yeah,
And for those who don't know, lard is bacon grease without the bacon, and tallow is bacon grease from a cow.
yeah,
And it's just like the actual fatty acids that come out of the fatty tissue of the pig or the cow, respectively. That was it. The Italians not brought olive oil yet. The coconut oil was not a thing. Coconut oil began being imported in the 90s. Avocado oil wasn't even
wow,
invented. Avocado oil was started to become available in niche circles in like the early 2000s.
wow.
And most importantly, seed oils were not available.
Yeah,
In particular, they were not available because they had not been invented yet. At least the Italians and Greeks and whoever had been eating olive oil for centuries. It just hadn't migrated to America.
yeah,
But vegetable oils like canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil, all of the seed oils that we'll talk about, like it was not physically, technologically possible to manufacture them because to manufacture them, you need technology that hadn't been invented yet. And so I think that's the key point here is that this is not like we eat more of this thing that we've always eaten. It's not like, oh, people eat more bread than they used to, or they eat more fruit or sweets. Or, like we've always eaten pastries.
yeah,
Like there's always been bread. There's always been meat and dairy and whatever vegetables, but there have not there have not always been seed oils.
yeah. That's such a
Um,
good point.
yeah, and not only was it so our average consumption 100 years ago or 120 years ago, whatever, was zero seed
Hmm.
oils. The crazier thing is that our average consumption today, the average American obtains about 25 to 30% of their total calories from seed oils. Yeah. So like the plurality of calories that the average person consumes are derived from seed oils. It's like the single largest single source of calories. Um, and so if you think about it, just that volume shift of anything is going to raise some eyebrows. But what happens when you're shifting all the caloric volume into something that's literally like was not around for your own great grandparents? Like they couldn't have
Right.
eaten them if they tried, or maybe
That
great
your
great
like body
grandparents.
doesn't know what to do with, therefore.
Yeah, right. And so it's not necessarily given that just because it's new it means it's bad. Although yeah, it does. But some people make that argument.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're obtaining the largest portion of calories from this thing that your great or great great or however old you are, some recent ancestor never even saw,
Yeah.
much less consumed. And so I think that's got to raise like the first set of questions. The second implication of this is that to be invented means that it's like we're sufficiently detached from nature that human technology cannot progress to a point where it was possible to produce them until about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Like that's very advanced in the
Yeah.
history of human technology, right?
That's like
We've
far on
had
the time clock.
it's very far. Yeah, we've had bread for like 6 to 8 thousand years. We've had dairy for like 10 to 12 thousand years. We've had meat since forever,
Yeah.
right? Like 100 years ago is a very far
It's like a
phase
second.
to reach.
I always think about like history as a clock and like
Yeah,
how long would this have actually existed? Like social media, right? Like a
yeah,
millisecond. Seed
yeah,
oils is like
yeah.
a second, you know?
Yeah, like a millisecond. I mean, if you start the clock at when humans invented fire, or a reasonable starting point,
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend to do accurate rough math in my head, but we're talking about like a hundredth or a thousandth of a second out of 1 hour is the amount of time since seed oils were invented.
Yeah.
So yeah, very very new. And then so the other then with that in mind, you should already be suspicious.
Yeah.
And then the next part is we can talk about a little bit of the implications, which is I think the real key in understanding why people make such a big deal about them. Um, Usually you hear about like people think about substances as having a single effect, right? Oh,
Mm,
I take a Tylenol and I don't exactly know how it works, but it affects these receptors and whatever, pain goes away. I
yeah.
take a Benadryl and it's like, oh, it's sensitive to my histamine receptors, whatever that means, and like histamine goes away, and so I stop having a runny nose or whatever. Um, that is not how food works, and in particular, that's not how vegetable oils work.
It's not
The
really how
reason
medicine
for
works either. But
not
yeah.
how medicine works, but that's how people
Yeah.
think about it. And
Yeah.
so I think what trips people up with the seed oil thing is that you'll hear people talk about how it makes you fat and it gives you brain disease and sunburn and gives you cancer and it gives you IBS and it gives you macular degeneration and fatty liver disease and IBS, if I didn't already say that, and a whole host of other things. And people are like, there's no way that that one thing causes all those effects. Um, and I understand how it's easy to think that if, again, your view of substances being consumed is like they have a particular biological effect, like
Right.
how we think about medicines working. But the thing about fats is that um, fat is not just like end up in your fat cells, like your belly or whatever. Fat goes everywhere in your body. Like it's in your blood, it's in your brain. Your brain is 60% fat. It's your cell membranes are made of lipids, right? There's
Yeah.
a barrier between the two cells made of lipids. Um, so fat goes like fat molecules end up everywhere. And the issue with seed oils is that those particular types of oil molecules, they're not like a single fatty acid, which is the building block of oil. What happens is they start as fatty acid, but because they are prone to oxidation, as everyone always says, all that simply really means is that that molecule breaks apart, and the joint where the two pieces break apart, the ending of that little piece is now more reactive than it was to begin with. And reactivity means that it will bind to things that it shouldn't bind to. It'll
Yeah.
basically steal electrons away or donate electrons to, I forget what it is. But this is what people call oxidative stress, right? It's cells, which are made of molecules, are being disrupted because some of those molecules are having electrons stolen from them by molecules that the electron is more attracted to than the original one. And
Yeah.
that's what it means for a molecule to be reactive. It steals electrons away from others. And so the byproducts of the acetyl oxidation are very reactive and they steal electrons away. They bind to places where they shouldn't bind. They basically destroy molecules, which means they destroy cells and just cause damage wherever they go. And since fat is everywhere, it's in your eyeballs, again, it's in your skin, it's in your liver, it's in your intestines, fat's everywhere, they cause damage everywhere. So
Yeah.
it's not like seed oils are this magic little, like they have a long list of enemies and you're going to eat them and they're going to go find out your eyeballs and attack them. They just they're just a it's like salt water, right? If you have a boat in salt water or a dock or keep metal, like the salt water is just going to kind of corrode everything it touches.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of like that. They're just going to corrode everything they touch. And whether that shows up as skin inflammation or liver inflammation or eyeball inflammation or intestinal inflammation or whatever, um, they're just going to damage those things. And so you'll see a variety of these symptoms that people talk about. And that's kind of how they work. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that is, I think one of the hard things about this is that none of this is being explained that succinctly to anyone, right? We're getting the general, like, seed oils
Mhm.
aren't great, but we're still going to keep putting them in everything. So, like, good luck out there.
Yeah,
Figure it
or what is
out.
the fun one is like, well, we know fried foods aren't good for you, and
Right.
so since seed oils are in fried foods, then we know it's not the seed oils, it's the fried foods, which I sell fried things, fried beef tallow, you know this.
Yeah.
Worth pushing back on. The reason why people say fried foods are bad for you, it's either because they have a lot of fat or because the fat is exposed to heat, right? Those are the two main reasons why a conventional person might say a fried food is bad for you. Well, we know fat is not bad. The keto wave, while I'm not keto myself, nor do I think most people benefit greatly from it, like
Agreed.
that at least taught us that fat isn't the problem. You hear about
Yeah.
healthy fats all the time. Clearly, fat itself, the consumption of fat is not an issue. People do olive oil shots. They put, coconut oil in your smoothie,
Yeah.
whatever. Like you'd be advised to eat an avocado, which is healthy fats, right? Like
Right.
fat is clearly not a problem. And so, yes, fried foods have more fat than of an equivalent food that's not fried. But since when is fat itself a problem? We know that it's not. We know that there could be good fats.
Yeah.
So that debunks the first point. The second point, though, is that the oils are heated, and so they degrade or whatever. And typically, this is true when you heat foods of all sorts. Acrylane is a common one. Certain aldehydes, other like, when food turns brown or black, like it tastes bitter, like you don't want to eat that. Yeah,
Yeah.
like burnt stuff isn't good, basically.
Yeah.
Um, and the interesting thing about this is that frying occurs at a temperature that is lower than a lot of other cooking methods, which
Yeah.
surprises most people. People think
Yeah.
frying hot, ooh, ouch. But frying, for us at least, occurs like somewhere in the mid to low 300s degrees Fahrenheit. Boiling, as you may be aware, occurs at 212 degrees, which is kind of close. But any sauteing, pan sauteing, baking, roasting, broiling, grilling, like meat on a charcoal grill, where you get the
Yeah.
black scorch marks, there's fat in the beef. The temperatures experienced in those cooking methods, air frying, range from 450 to like over 1,000 degrees.
Yeah.
And so if we're saying the heating is the problem, then frying is by far not the hottest method of cooking, right?
Right.
If you're saying, "Oh, I only eat steamed and raw vegetables or steamed and raw beef or like boiled beef or something," cool, fine.
It
I'm
sounds
not gonna.
awful, but
It
okay.
sounds terrible. Yeah, I don't think against that, but most people don't do that, and so they're eating the burnt decomposition products of just food in general.
Right.
They're doing it, and they're just fine. So yeah, the whole fried foods thing doesn't matter. It is the oils. It's
Yeah.
not the frying. It's the oils.
So, in this episode, you're hearing Stephen and I talk about health and wellness. We're going to get into going to the doctor and if that's even actually beneficial, which really is a great opportunity to pop in and remind you about Crowd Health, which is an insurance alternative that allows you to use your hard earned money to do things that actually help you feel better and be better and don't keep you stuck in a kind of never ending cycle and system. With Crowd Health, you pay a monthly fee. And with that, that gives you access to a team of bill negotiators, lower cost prescriptions and testing, vetted doctor lists, and your own dedicated care advocate. If something big happens, you pay the first $500 and then the rest of the crowd steps in and picks up the rest, which is honestly how something like this should work. So you can join Crowd Health to get started for $99 for your first 3 months by using the code Speakeasy when you go to joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code Speakeasy. And like I said, this is an insurance alternative, not an insurance, but this is how you can opt out of a broken system and take your power back at joincrowdhealth.com.
No, I totally agree. I hadn't even really thought about it that way. It's what it is being fried in, right?
Yeah.
Like the French fry isn't the bad guy. Like, because I mean, I love me a tallow French fry.
Right.
Like, there's a brand that I just got. It's like Ben and
Jesse and Ben's.
Jesse and Ben's. Like,
Yeah.
theirs are fantastic. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it's like they're in tallow, which is the same thing with Masa and Vandy. So I would love, just like as a consumer, like how did Ancient Crunch come about? So you're like out of college, you've been sprouting your own grains and you on like being that guy at the dining hall. Where does this all start to come into play?
So I had been working for about 2 years after college as a software engineer. It was during COVID, so it was like remote work. I was not working very much, shall we say.
Yeah.
And I had decided to become a health influencer in the summer of 2021, which one might call seed oil summer. This is kind of when seed oils became the
Yeah.
talking point on TikTok and Instagram, whatever. And I made some TikTok videos. I got some followers. But I just started talking a lot more about all the health stuff I had learned over the years. And a few months after that, which, this became my chief hobby, I was with a few friends on a trip, and one of them started eating, I think, Tostitos or whatever, some seed oil tortilla chip. And I began making fun of him for eating, engine lubricant. What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
how are you living a rock? Do you not know that's terrible for you? And he kind of was like, "Look, what do you want from me? I have no time. This tastes good. I don't want to eat your like gross cardboard health food." Which again, most people think health food tastes like gross cardboard.
Right.
At that time, to a little diversion, I'd finally figured out that like the key to health food is not alternative ingredient, whatever cardboard type health food. It's simply make things the right way.
And like real food.
Yeah. Just like things that could grow from dirt in your yard, perhaps. Not that you necessarily have to grow it yourself, but you get my point. So anyway, I started explaining to him like, no, you're wrong. Like healthy chips could taste good, but no one makes them because, I don't know, it's hard or expensive or something. He kind of asked, he was like, curious, asked more about, well, what would it look like? What would the ingredients be? And then I described a hypothetical chip at that time. The answer was clear to me. I just made this up on the spot, but it was just so obvious. It's organic nixtamalized corn and grass-fed beef tallow and salt, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
That's just how you make chips. And he said that sounded interesting. Like, could I make it? Like, if it doesn't exist, why don't you go make it? And given that I had spare time, I went about doing so a few weeks later. And the prototype, honestly, even surpassed my own expectations for how good it was going to taste. For a second, I was actually a little shocked when I fed it to my extended family, who also thought it was good. We have certain people that are, say, not super into health necessarily, and the fact that they thought it tasted good, not like one of my weird health foods, that was a shock there. And so with that, pleasantly surprised, I'm like, well, this is kind of the golden ticket, right? This is the holy grail of food, as we talked about. It's things that are both healthy and taste good. And so we decided we should start selling it using a little social media platform that I had built up, plus a few friends who also had health followings. We managed to sell out all that we could make on our first day, which is a few hundred bags, maybe. And yeah, I have been making tortilla chips and now potato chips ever since. That was about 4 years.
When did the potato chips come in?
It was 2 years after that.
Okay, I thought it was a little bit after.
Yeah.
And those are, I mean, essentially the same concept: potato, salt, tallow.
Organic potatoes, which is
right.
A lot harder to do organic potatoes than organic corn, I'll tell you that.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, go look at the grocery store shelves. Like, there's a lot of every like the store label brand at Whole Foods or even Publix or whatever. It's organic corn, but it's seed oil organic corn, and they don't taste very good. But like organic corn is relatively accessible. Organic potatoes, not so much. Especially The varieties that we use, which are better for frying, than the like kinds they sell at the grocery stores, which are better for at home use, like baking.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's hard to obtain large volumes of fry ready organic potatoes. Anyway, took a digression, but yeah, that's kind of it. It's just like you have the carbohydrate, you fry it, you season it,
Yeah.
you're done. Yeah.
And they're fantastic. And I will say, your friend's original pushback of like, it either tastes like cardboard or it's expensive. Like, and I know for a fact that you hear people like say things about the
Oh
price
yeah.
of ancient crunch. And it's like, okay, then like, I mean, not being ugly, but like, okay, then like go eat the seed oil chips. Like, I don't,
Yeah, it's like, what do you want? What do you how cheap do you expect food to be? Is really
yeah,
my rebuttal to this.
good
This is
food.
it's not entirely fair of comparison, but it is true that in the 1950s, people spent about 30-ish% of their disposable income on food,
Yeah.
and today it's about 11%,
Really?
which is like a significant shrinking. That being said, the price of housing relative to income has increased, and there are other
Absolutely.
considerations. But it just goes to show you that food, like the fact that food is so low as 11% is already, well, maybe it's not a miracle, but most people would think it's a miracle.
Yeah.
And then that's just like 7 years ago. The more crazy thing is like if you want to go back in time and roll the dice, the 1890s, 97% of people were farmers, right? Or whatever it was.
Right.
Maybe it was a little older than that, maybe like the pre-industrial revolution, whatever, that
Yeah.
doesn't matter. You get my point. But yeah, so people were farmers before then. And so this whole idea that food should be essentially free. Like I walked into Costco the other day. Hold on, something's not charging. I walked into Costco the other day and I saw just like a 35-ounce bag of chips for like $6 or $5. And I was
Yeah.
like, why even charge money? Like, why even go through the why even go
Well,
through the
and
inconvenience of making pay? It's basically free, you
if the
know?
bag of chips is that cheap, then the ingredients in it are that
Yeah.
cheap.
It's
And
like
I
it
look,
might as well be free. I don't
right.
understand. And so if like food is so expensive, it's really not. Like, and also the other thing about farmers, people think I buy food at the store. Someone who's growing that food makes money. I think farmers make like 8 cents of every food dollar
Oh
spent in the
yeah.
U.S.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
Like that's if you were to get an 8% coupon for whatever at your favorite store, you wouldn't even bother clipping it,
Yeah.
right? And yet that is what farmers get paid. If you were to
Yeah.
snap your fingers and expect farmers to just not get any money, all you would save is 8% off your food bill, which is basically nothing, right?
Yeah.
Um, anyway, yeah, so we try to do what we can. Obviously, it is, there's a prioritization thing. If you can't
Yeah.
afford good food, or you like can't afford all the good food you want, you should buy organic rice and ground beef and
Yeah.
like just eat that. Like
Yeah.
their chips are not an essential part of the human diet, but they are
Chips are a
very,
treat. Like chips are a luxury for
yeah,
sure.
but
And
they're
chips that
delicious.
aren't 100% and chips that aren't flooding your system with seed oils are unfortunately in this day and age are like a luxury. But it is
Hmm.
wild to me, just like in the generally online dynamic, like the thing, like that people are upset about that. And I'm always like, I get it.
Yeah.
We have, I think there's this ideal of like accessibility that like everybody should have access to everything always. I'm like, there are things that I can't afford. I can be mad that I
Yeah,
can't
yeah. Like
afford it, or I
my
can
Louis Vuitton handbags are expensive. Like,
right.
is that a human rights violation? Because I can't buy a Louis Vuitton handbag. Like,
Yeah.
I don't buy a Louis Vuitton handbag. Problem solved.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think that like when you know the process and you know the ingredients, like I think that you guys aren't like bumping the cost of your chips up so much that like nobody can afford them.
The other thing is we've never made our chips more expensive.
Right.
We've been in business for 4 years, and the price has only come down. When we first
Yeah.
started, we sold a 2-ounce bag for $6, which is $3 an ounce. And now we sell a 5-ounce bag for $13, which is a little less than $3 an ounce. At Target, we're available for $10.
Oh
We're in about
wow.
300 different Target stores, $9.99. Yeah.
That's a big
Um,
deal to get,
so
I
two
mean, to
dollars
be
an
in
ounce.
Target.
Yeah, $2 an ounce. And the other thing is, I was at some grocery store the other day, and I was looking at all the other snacks. Everything's $1 an ounce.
Mm-hmm.
Like even uh, dog poop, to pardon my French, is like $1 an ounce, and I'm like, when we first started, I remember things were 30 cents an ounce. So
Yeah.
I haven't raised my prices.
Yeah.
Everyone else has. But I think the perception is still that it's expensive. And yeah, I mean, people have to prioritize. But
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think we
the
can prioritize without like being upset about it, I guess is the point that
Yeah,
I'm making. Yeah.
the other thing is like I have a wife, we have a kid, she has another one on the way. I've like existed as a health guy for so many years, and we've never really gone to doctors.
Yeah.
Like people are always complaining about medical bills, which sure they sound expensive and whatnot, but like obviously get hit by a bus, different story. But like you don't really need to go to doctors.
Yeah. I
Like
think there are like chronic situations that are a little
yeah,
bit
there's
more
always
outlier
exceptions,
for
but
sure.
like
We're the same
the
way. We don't go to the doctor.
the fundamental human condition is not one that needs constant expensive medical attention.
Yeah.
Like whether through your own fault or environmental or whatever, like if something's wrong, it is what it is. But like you don't like if you're going to doctors every 2 days or whatever, something is wrong, like very wrong. And whether
And
again you were exposed to asbestos as a kid and it's not your fault, or you just ate junk for the past 40 years and like didn't know better, whatever. The point is, it's not that is not the right situation for a human being to be living in,
yeah.
having to like go to a doctor every 2 seconds. And
Well,
that's
and that's
talk about
expensive.
expensive. Talk about expensive. I think medical, whatever hospitals and medical is the single largest contributor to U.S. GDP. So it's like the biggest single section of our economy.
And it's a
Um,
huge contributor to American debt.
yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, well, fortunately, uh, medical bills don't go on your credit score if you don't pay them. Wink,
Right.
wink. Anyway, but like their entire people don't talk about this, but like San Francisco is for tech and New York is finance. Their entire several cities, the entire purpose of which is simply hospital,
Yeah.
medicine, whatever. Like
It's the whole city.
The city of Philadelphia, it's just hospital, medical, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, kind of like Boston actually is kind of like this at this point. Yeah, there's universities, but everything is like a drug company in disguise, at least, or not in disguise. Um, yeah, it's the biggest section of the American economy that talks about, and so like somehow that's okay, and we can spend our money on that, but not
Right.
on like buying slightly more expensive groceries that are better for you that will
Yeah.
prevent you from having to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a doctor. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's a really difficult conversation to have with people that are in that system. And I'm sure you've experienced that because there is this like I think a very American mindset that like this is the way that it is. Like you get into that medical system, and I mean, their entire point and purpose is to create a lifelong patient.
Yep.
And and I can admit, like, so my dad was in the medical system my entire life. And it's really interesting because now he's pretty disillusioned with the entirety of it and struggles with some of what he spent his career doing. But we all like turned to medicine because that's what you thought.
Mhm.
It's just like kind of what you're conditioned to think needed to be done. And then once you break
Yep.
out of that and you find that like God really created our bodies to heal, and that largely like through food and I think
Mhm.
nervous system healing and all of those things. But that's a hard system to break out of. Clearly not impossible, but
Not impossible, but
incredibly
it's
difficult.
psychologically pretty difficult.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean that's kind of what like we had bad food that made us sick, and instead of fixing the food, people decided to go to the doctors about it.
exactly. Yeah,
And I think part of the other issue is the medical industry was not always all terrible. Um,
yeah,
there's been a lot of historical revisionism and like fake news about the history of medicine, but it is simply true that 200 years ago, people died from a lot of things that they would not die from today,
absolutely.
like getting a cut and gangrene and an
Yep,
amputation or whatever, or like cholera or scarlet fever or tuberculosis. Um, and we don't die from those things today. We die from other things, but we don't die from
right,
those things.
right.
And part of the issue is that medical science, as it were, benefited reputationally from the curing of these diseases, whether or not it actually did so. Um, most credible people that I know ascribe most of the benefits in like the reduction of communicable diseases to basically like having running water in cities.
I was about to say, like, hygiene.
Right, hygiene. Like, 120 years ago, if you were a poor person in New York, like you'd be stepping over poop on the street,
Right. Well, you
Um,
can do that in LA now,
so,
but
but alas, whether rightly or wrongly, the medical innovations were credited with solving those problems, whether or not they actually did so.
yeah.
And so, riding on those coattails of like bringing man into the modern civilized age, um, they were able to convince a lot of people to do a lot of stupid stuff, and they will still continue to do so before their reputation ultimately dies, which it will, as like the truth always comes out.
Yeah.
Um, but that's how that works. Like they solve a lot of problems for a lot of people that humans have had for centuries, which was pretty cool. And
Yeah.
then they like thought they could apply the same methods to a different set of problems, which they can't. And eventually it will be revealed that they're ineffective, but it'll take a while.
I think so. Do you think that in the same way, like do you see a shift like in a return to traditional food?
I
Like, are
mean,
you,
people more people buy our stuff this year than they did last year, and
yeah.
more than the year before. So as
Yeah.
long as that keeps happening, I guess the answer to the question is yes.
Yeah.
Um, it's interesting. People talk about GLP-1s a lot in the food industry. Um, I don't really know that many people personally who take them because it's not my kind of people necessarily.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to think about how how people who are on such drugs, how their attitudes toward food will change.
Mm-hmm.
I think it remains to be seen what the side effects of these things are. I mean, I've heard pretty horrifying stories, and
Yeah.
yet, I mean, this always happens. It's funny when this came out. I did a whole little deep dive into the history of like weight loss pills and drugs.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them throughout all of modern history was pulled off the market within a few years because of like intestinal bleeding or
Right.
God knows what else.
Right. I mean,
Um,
they're creating entire ER departments
yeah, so
for these people,
not looking good. We'll see. I mean, I do think the ability of the pharmaceutical industry to propagandize,
Oh my
interestingly
gosh.
enough, has never been stronger, and
Yeah.
so it's quite possible that, let's say, I don't know, 10% of Ozempic users have had significant side effects. I'm just making up numbers, but like, let's say it's 10%. If this were maybe in the 80s or 90s, like, would that 10% of people who had those serious side effects been enough to sway enough public opinion to
Historically, I would say, yeah.
get the thing banned? Probably. I mean, because I
Yeah.
looked at some of these and they were pulled off the market for like not very strong
Yeah.
reason or not very overwhelming reasons. But it just seems like that doesn't happen anymore. And maybe it's just because you
Yeah.
don't hear about it in the news, but I guess that's kind of the whole point of the propaganda machine working. You
Right.
don't really hear about it. Like statins, like the evidence against both against their actual efficacy and for their actual harmful side effects is pretty overwhelmingly large. No one's banning them anytime soon. No one seems to care.
I'm still having to tell friends, like, oh, no,
Right,
no, 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 don't let them put you on a statin. No,
right.
like the
But then
doctors are
there's like
still actively trying to prescribe them.
right, like, and somehow people haven't gotten the message, and yet, thalidomide. I don't know if you remember that from history class in high school. It was like I forgot the medicine, but it made like kids' teeth permanently deformed
Oh,
when the
yeah, yeah,
mothers took
yeah.
it or something. That was banned very infamously and like publicly, very quickly,
Yeah.
like in the 50s or 60s or whatever. And I just don't know that that would happen today. It's actually I
Yeah.
haven't really thought about this particular line of I haven't really I'm just thinking about this for the first time now, but yeah, I don't know that there is the political consensus or will, whether it's a politician or a news anchor or whoever, to actually write about anything that affects people in a positive way or prevents them from having some harm come to them. I just as far as I can tell, it's only they will write about or say things that make them money.
100%. And also
Like
like
that's
keep
always
people
been true, but it's
enraged.
really true today. Like it's really
Yeah.
true, actually.
Yeah. Well, and GLP-1s coming off the market doesn't make anybody money.
Right. Right. So my point is you could imagine, or at least I'd like to imagine a principal journalist at like the New Yorker or New York Times or whatever in the 70s, like blowing the lid on some pharmaceutical scandal where they covered up some side effects
Yeah.
and people were sufficiently predisposed to distrust such entities that
Mm-hmm.
they would like rise up and politicians would be somewhat disposed to at least pretend that they cared about their constituents and like make it go away.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't think anyone in public life actually cares anymore. Kind of
Yeah.
shocking.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah. Anyway,
I
probably
love a rabbit trail,
just
but
one
it's
out
true.
to,
Well, and I think
yeah.
that circles back to like what we're talking about, which is we have such a dissemination of information now. Like it's at your fingertips, it's constant input, but what is it? And is it telling you the truth? And is it telling you the truth about your body and how you can be better? And the answer is by and large, no. Like we're having to seek people out who have done their own
Yeah,
research and
you're
have their
listening
own
to
lived
like
experience.
you're listening to me explain seed
Right.
oils. I'm
Right.
not a pharmacologist or a physiologist or anything like why the hell am I
But I would
explaining
rather
this?
listen to you because you've lived it and now you've
Right.
like done something to make a change in it. I think people are more inclined to believe like the
No,
another everyday
and I
man.
do think I'm more believable. I'm just like sad
It
and kind
shouldn't
of
be
mad
that
that that
way.
is the case. Yeah,
Yeah.
why can't you listen to a doctor tell you about this? Like that person
Yeah.
should be far more qualified to speak
Yeah.
on it. But
Meanwhile,
the
doctors
sad
get like
irony,
2 hours of nutrition in med school. So
yeah, the sad irony is that they are not more qualified to speak on it, and that's really messed up.
it is. To close us out, we've talked about like a bunch of different things. Do you think seed oils is like the swap to make right now?
Um, I wouldn't say right now. I'd say always.
Oh, I mean, like
um,
of if we're like all the things that we can swap. If somebody's listening and they
oh, sure,
are,
yeah. Of all the commonly consumed things, 100%. And
yeah,
the reason is we consume them in far greater quantities than any
than anything
other
else.
harmful thing, right? Like Red 40 is not good for you, but if you were to eat like M&Ms every week or every day or whatever, over the course of a year, you'd consume like a few grams of Red
Right.
40, right?
Right.
Does mix poison. Now, gram for gram, Red 40 might be more toxic than seed oils, but still, it's like there's not that much physical matter to affect you that harmfully. Um, so I say that, but then the second point is that also um, the seed oil, the foods that have seed oils also have a lot of other stuff you don't want to be eating anyway.
Yeah.
And so you
A lot
get
of
by
gluten.
proxy most of the bad stuff, not all, certainly, but you get a lot of other bad stuff out of your diet for free if you avoid seed oils.
Yeah.
So,
And it's I find it's getting easier. Like not
Mhm.
you're not gonna be able to like do like, McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and stuff like that, but
Not yet, at least.
not yet. Fingers crossed. What is it
We'll see.
that did was it In and Out or
No,
Shake
steak and
Shack?
shake. Steak and shake.
Steak and Shake. I knew somebody like made a change. But
Yeah.
so like I think that the hope is that more and more people are having this conversation and that change is coming because that was one thing. I just took seed oils out of my diet like last year
Oh, wow.
and I took gluten out like 4 almost 5 years ago and that was huge. That was such a massive change for me. But the seed oils thing and in relation specifically for me to digestion, huge,
Yeah.
huge
Yeah.
difference.
The other key thing is like there's good gluten like that you can eat.
Yeah,
I can
right.
make you or and I'm not saying you have to, but the point I'm trying to make is that you can have organic sourdough, freshly
Yeah.
milled whole grain, ancient grain bread.
Yep.
Um, and
I
that'd be
actually do. I
pretty
use
good.
ancient grain now.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The difference with seed oils is that there's not a good version of a seed oil. like
Exactly.
organic canola oil is in no meaningful way better than non-organic canola oil. There's no
Yeah.
way to make that product good. And so that's another thing. It's like cut gluten out of your diet, like, yeah, or just get better gluten. But
Right.
like seed oils must be ruthlessly cut for the simple fact that they're not a natural part of the human diet. It's
Yeah.
just like there's not like a slight like Red 41 is better than Red 40. Like no, synthetic food dyes just have no place in food. If
Yeah.
you want something to look red, use beet powder or tomato
Yep.
powder or something. Um, so yeah, I think that's 100%. That's the biggest one. You eat the most of it, and most of the other bad things that you want to avoid anyway are already contained in foods that also contain it. So
Yeah. 100%. Steven, thank you so much. This is like such a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate it.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Blake.